And we are live. How are you, man?
Good, man. Yourself?
Not too bad. Hopefully the pod dog chills out a little bit.
I'm not going to lie, the only reason I'm here is the pod dog.
I think that's the only reason why any guests have come in, if I'm honest.
Can I just give a caveat right now? I just want to get this off my chest right now.
Yeah.
So, I woke up this morning and, long story short, I had to yell a lot yesterday and I feel like I'm losing my voice and I've had about 10 cough lollies in the last hour. So if my voice is more raspy and hard to listen to than it normally is, like, just for anyone out there, I'm pointing to a camera right now. For anyone out there, I apologise. My voice is going to sound worse than it normally does. I think I sound pretty raspy and dry ochre on a good day, so I apologise.
I think it adds to the audio experience. Then I think it's the excellent amount of harshness to the...
I'm literally just digesting my last cough lolly right now. The last emergency cough lolly. It was actually, I've never done cough lollies until last year when I had to do, I was doing 3 or 4 tutorials with the uni, so I was doing Zoom tutorials back to back, so I was doing 3 or 4 of them back to back, and they're about 90 minutes, 2 hours each, and just like, by the second or third one in, I was just like, my voice is just gone, and I was just like, hey, like, I shouldn't call them kids because they're undergrads, but I'm like, hey kids, like, someone's got to level up right now because Uncle Ben's lost his voice.
I like that you bring up the kids thing because I feel like I have the right to call anyone a kid who is like 1 year younger than me. I'm like, if I've been on this earth for like a split second longer than you, I think I reserve the right to call you kid. This happens to me at jiu-jitsu all the time. So, like, I'm not old for jiu-jitsu at all by any standards. But a lot of them are like 18, 24, 25, and maybe it's because I'm jealous because they can just train all day and not have a care in the world. And I'm just really secretly, like I'm trying to tell them, I'm like, this is it. This is the moment. But one day you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, I wish I could, this is it.
I'll tell you what, like, I was actually going to raise it today as like, so like, I used to be able to just train. And then as time went on, it's like, okay, now hang on, I've got to modulate workload a little bit. And now I'm training for a couple of mountain bike races coming up in a few weeks. And every week has 2 solid interval sessions scheduled into it. And for the last 2 weeks, I haven't made that second interval session. And I'm just like, oh, maybe this is old age. Like,
oh, 100%.
And I don't know if you've noticed as well, but so like a lot of the, let's call them podcasters, media influencers, whatever you want to call them. So like a lot of the Joel Jannisons and I mean like Peter Attia and Huberman, whatever his name is. You know, they're always talking about longevity, and even like Andy, what's Andy's last name? Sports scientist.
Oh, Huberman.
No, not him.
Oh, Andy Galpin.
Galpin. Yeah, even Galpin's starting to talk about like longevity. I'm using air quotes for the camera right now, and I'm like, oh fuck, these are guys that are just moving with their demographics right now because it's like we're all getting to the point where it's like we can't do 3 or 4 interval sessions a week and then 10 hours on top of that and work full time and raise a dog and like all that kind of shit. It's like, it's actually like, it's starting to actually hit me a little bit and I'm like, it drives me insane because I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about this whole longevity thing. I'm like, I want to talk about elite sport performance, right? That's kind of like my academic field. But I'm just like, now it's actually starting to hit home a little bit. I'm like, oh, fuck. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can swear. I felt the longevity thing that you were referring to probably like 3 years ago, where I realised that I was really happy doing like a really basic bodybuilding routine at the gym.
Yeah.
And I realised, you know what? This is enough. Like, I really enjoy training and I enjoy thrashing my body. My body doesn't enjoy me doing that to itself anymore.
I did notice, so I was actually seeing a girl from Canberra at one point, and Canberra has, I think it has the highest uptake of personal trainers in Australia from memory, or there was some Deloitte economics report or FitOz report or something like that on it. And I was talking to her and she said that the challenge up there is that people in Canberra are making like big decisions, like they're making life-altering decisions every day, and then when they get to the gym, it's like they just don't care, they don't give a shit. And then a couple of years ago, I was in a role where I was working really long hours, really long days. And I did what you did. I fell back on just really basic, really simplistic bodybuilding programs that neglected a lot of things. But I just remember thinking at the time, I'm like, wow, this is what Amy said to me, like, you don't have the mental capacity to think about it right now. It's like, yeah, okay. And then at one point, it was actually about this time last year, I reckon, I ended up just at a pseudo CrossFit club, just doing Olympic lifting classes there, just because I was like, someone just point me in the right direction. I'm in the middle of writing a thesis. I'm up to my eyeballs in work. Like, I don't have the mental capacity to think about my own training right now, which, if you'd spoken to me 5 years ago, or if you'd spoken to me even like 18 months, 2 years ago, and I said, and like, if you said to me, sorry, like, I don't have the mental capacity to think about my own training, I'd be like, well, what are you thinking about? Like, what do you do in your life? Like, that is possibly the most important thing in your life, is your own physical health and well-being, and you're just signing it off to someone else. Like, and yeah, and then the old age, there's that voice again. And then the old age kind of creeps in a little bit, and the work commitments and whatnot, and you're like, yeah, you kind of get to, or at least I got to the point anyway, I'm just like, hey, can you guys just take control of my training for a little bit?
Hey,
like,
21-year-old PT doing this group fitness class.
Well, luckily it wasn't. I wasn't.
I trust you.
I didn't quite go that far. They weren't quite 21-year-old PTs. They were experienced operators.
But you saw. I think those moments are important, because sometimes, like, I get it, like, I owned CrossFit gyms for a long time, but during that whole time I'm like, I don't get why these people don't want to spend the time thinking about, like, their own training. And it wasn't until you come to those sort of milestones or those times in your life where you realise, oh, I get it, like, you've got lots of other legitimate real life things happening in your life. Like, you don't want to spend hours thinking about, like, your training.
Yeah, and particularly when it's your job and it's your passion and it's what you do. It's, you know, I'll give you an example. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. She's racing mountain bikes, and she's actually doing really well for us. Racing B grade in Adelaide in women's mountain biking. So she's, you know, like, she's reasonable at what she's doing, and she doesn't have a heart rate monitor. And I'm just like, I'm going off my nut at her because she doesn't even have a heart rate monitor. And I've been meaning to actually send her a link, but Garmin just released a female-specific heart rate monitor, just as a
I love the marketing behind that.
Yeah, well, actually, no. To be fair, it is actually genuinely a female-specific heart rate.
I have no idea about this. What makes
okay. So women in general have been reporting issues of heart rate monitors are inaccurate or ineffective, because when they're wearing big sports bras, it clashes with the sports bra. And then I know Garmin released like an armband type heart rate monitor, and I think that was actually an optical, not a magnetic. So the optical heart rate monitors are kind of random number generators, to be brutally honest. So now they've released one that I've only seen one video of it, and I know of its existence, but it kind of clips to sports bras and sits more securely. So to be fair, it doesn't sound like it's just a marketing gimmick. It does sound like Garmin.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it does actually sound like Garmin are going, we do actually have a gap here, that we do actually have a technological gap here that needs to be filled in the market. So
see, this is why I like having you on, Ben. You know the real stuff. Okay, quick question.
Really,
I'm genuinely now curious.
Yeah.
When people just wear their wristwatches, how effective are they compared to, like, strapping?
So I've actually got my Garmin watch on now. I'm pretty sure I've read a few validation studies on these. So optical, which is the wrist worn stuff, it uses the 3 little lights. It is absolutely fine for tracking your sleep, as long as you don't have any sleep arrhythmias. And if I've got a friend, Dean Miller, who's in sleep research, so if I'm incorrect about that, please call me out. Absolutely fine for sitting there on the sofa tracking resting heart rate and whatnot when you're just at work or whatever. But the minute you start to throw any activity in, you start getting light underneath the optical sensors, and then they fall to pieces.
Okay.
And I've actually done a bit of testing on this myself. Every now and then I'll have my wristwatch on, and I'll have my heart rate monitor on, like just riding home from work or something like that, and there'll be like 20 or 30 beats per per minute difference between what the chest strap will say and what the optical HR will say.
And that's due to the light coming in.
I believe, yeah. So I'm led to believe that's the reasoning behind it, or that's what's actually happening. So it may be another reason, but as a general rule of thumb, the optical HR is pretty shitty at activity tracking anyway. So just sitting on your sofa at home or tracking your sleep patterns or whatever, no issues. I mean, I use my watch just to track my sleep patterns more than anything, just to remind me. I was like, I had a few late nights last week, like I need to get my shit together. But yeah, for activity, they just fall over.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, let's start the first question for all the listeners. You're doing a thesis. What's this on?
So we're looking at, broadly we're looking at training programs and endurance cyclists. So we're looking at training intensity distribution, endurance cyclists, I did. So broadly speaking, endurance athletes. More specifically, we're looking at training intensity distribution in cyclists. So we're doing a couple of things at the moment. We're in the process of trying to finish a literature review. So we've looked at We've looked at the results of about 50 different studies. So we've taken the results from 50 different studies and poured that into a review.
When you say review, does that mean that there's like a whole bunch of you that are just reading through it, or?
No. So when I say a systematic review, what we've done is we've taken 50 studies. It's 48, 50 studies. We've looked at the results from all those studies, and then we pull all those results together. So essentially taking an average of all those. Yeah. So you often hear this all the time. You will hear this all the time. A new study will be published, and then the first thing that comes up on Reddit or Twitter or whatever, someone goes, well, that's just one study. And it's like, well, what a literature review does is it looks at all the studies in the field. And then it pulls all that data together to look at how that measures out as a norms table and as an average, rather than just looking at the one cherry pick study. So, like, if you want an example, I'm going to call someone out here, but Huberman, he's really good at cherry picking stuff. For those listening right now, the dog just got his head caught in cables. But he's really good at cherry picking studies. So he's very good at just going, well, here's one study that supports my argument. So where the whole idea of the literature review is that it takes in, I had to teach research standards to undergrads, which is as fun as it sounds. But the idea is that when you clearly define what your inclusion criteria is in terms of what studies go into your review, then it's far more transparent. So it becomes far more transparent about, no, we're not cherry picking, or our inclusion criteria was X, which means this whole body of research was repressed from this study, was not included in the study, therefore you need to take caution with that. Which you should do at any research anyways. It's when I hear terms like trust the science, or the science is settled, a couple of terms we hear thrown around the media all the time. Like, part of me inside dies, because I'm just like, no, I don't trust the science. I digest the science and then I weigh it up against the other science, and then I critique it on that. And then, funnily enough, one of my undergraduate lecturers actually sent me a message the other day, and he said, he asked me something about hypertrophy or something like that, and I sent him a message back just saying, look, you're not going to like this, but the answer kind of is it doesn't matter. And his response was, no, it's not that I don't like that answer, it's that I'm a scientist as well, and I know that that's probably the answer. Like, when I think I said the words like it doesn't matter, or it's complex, or it's nuanced, or something like that. And I said, you're not going to like this. And he's like, no, that's the way it is. Like, it's complex, it's nuanced, it's, you can't just turn it into a 30-second soundbite and say, this is it. So anyway, the first study we're working on is the review, and then the other study we're working on so we're doing a retrospective analysis of training right now. So we've got a number of cyclists. I can't say too much because I'm still writing the study. We've got a number of really elite level cyclists, and we've got a number of recreational level cyclists, and we have obtained their training for the last 12 months. And we're looking at how the intensity distribution of that looks. So how much is in a very low intensity, how much is at a moderate intensity, and how much is at a very high intensity. and we're looking at the differences between the two. So we want to see whether elite level cyclists train with a different intensity distribution to that of recreational cyclists. And then obviously we're going to look into that elite level group as well to see how that distribution changes over a 12-month period. So we're looking at the periodization of it basically to see if we can better describe the way that is at the moment. So they're probably the two things that I'm working on at the moment. I've also got my name on a study that'll get published soon enough. So a friend of mine, Mitch Anderson's got a study published on thermoregulation, so looking at how the body adapts to heat. So hopefully that'll get published soon enough. It was meant to be published before Christmas, but academia being academia, it was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Can I ask the question that I really want to ask, which is this going to be a pro-sauna study or an anti-sauna study?
I don't think sauna's included in this study, so sorry, I can't speak to sauna.
I would literally get a hard on if you show me anything that shows that ice baths and saunas are overrated.
Look, you can get a hard on if you want, but I'm just not that way inclined, mate.
Okay, let's divert to that question. Because look, okay, I want to make 2 points. One is, I trust you when you say, I've done the research and I've read this study, right?
Thank you.
I don't trust anyone else when they say that. And there's way too many people online, especially like when I see a 22-year-old being like, I read the study, I'm like, motherfucker, you didn't read shit. Like,
you read the title and maybe the abstract if you got that
maybe,
far.
Even that I'm not buying, right?
Abstract, yeah.
So, first of all, I just want to get that out there, because that is like a fact.
Do you want to know something else to that as well is, so like in the process of writing this review, there's a lot of studies that I read 3 years ago, and I'll have reread them recently, and you reread them with new knowledge or new understanding of a topic area, and you go, hang on, I didn't notice that nuance before. Or, you know, like the one we're actually finding the most is like, so like in academia we're obsessed with VO2 max, right? Like it's all about VO2 max. It's because it's the easiest fucking one to test, right? And like we're actually finding like changes in VO2 max don't always correlate to changes in performance, right? So just because you take a runner, take a cyclist, take a swimmer, take whatever, take a CrossFitter, just because they increase their VO2 max by 5 or 10 points doesn't mean their time trial results are going to improve as well. So swimmer, runner, cyclist doesn't mean their time trials are going to improve just because you increase their VO2 max. So like 3 or 4 years ago, you know, I was sort of gearing up for what I'm doing now, and I'm looking through all these studies and, you know, fishing out all this VO2 data, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Based a lot of my own training around what I read around, you know, this is improved VO2, like, that's great. Now look at it now, I'm like, oh fuck, actually I didn't realise the nuance in that, or, you know, I didn't quite understand the association between point A and point B, or, you know, something like that. But sorry, you had a question and I just went on a tangent.
No, you did. No, an interesting tangent. I find your tangents interesting, Ben. My question was, I guess, relating to, look, we live in a world where people love these little sound bites, and I'm kind of digging for that. But I guess my question is...
Your soundbite is it's complicated.
My intuition, right?
Yeah.
My very unscientific intuition...
Yeah.
has like a bit of a pushback towards this big fad that I see with people having like this romantic obsession with the ice bath and sauna culture for improving recovery. So from someone who probably has read more studies than I have on this,
I don't want to break your heart, but I haven't actually read much on it. The stuff that I have read, I've only really skim read, so I don't want to say too much on the subject. But I would say, as you have as well, we've both been around this culture long enough to see these things come and go, and it feels like to me, having been doing this for 10 or more than 10 years now, you'll see something come along for 12 months and everyone goes ape shit over it, and then they get bored and then they move on to the next one. Now, the thing that I will say is, particularly when it comes to recovery, so if we're just talking specifically about recovery, so if we're not talking about anything else, we're niched in on recovery, is the placebo effect is real. So if you think that getting in a sauna or getting in an ice bath is helping, maybe it is. Like, if you're getting up the next day and you're running an extra kilometre than what you did if you hadn't done the ice bath intervention, maybe that is a placebo effect. But if it is a placebo effect, if there's no physiological markers to demarcate there, then does it really matter? Like,
yeah, I guess I hadn't looked at it that way at all, really, and that, I think that's a good point you bring up, because that is so much of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed as well is, for a lot of it is, and you would have seen this in the CrossFit community, and I know I was just listening to one of your other podcasts coming over here, and someone said the thing she liked best about CrossFit was the community. But it's, if the community are getting together around the ice bath, or the community are getting together around the sauna, if you're going sitting in a sauna for half an hour with a bunch of your crew and just talking shit for half an hour, if you put your phone down for 30 minutes to go talk shit with your crew in a sauna, like, is that a bad thing? I don't think so.
Okay.
Same thing with the ice bath. It's like, if you jumped in an ice bath for however long people are doing ice, I wouldn't even know what the duration of the temperature is. And, you know, you've just got a bunch of crew standing around laughing at you because you're sitting in a wheelie bin full of ice or something stupid like that, and a bunch of selfies pop up on Instagram or whatever. It's like, is that a bad thing? Like, you just hung out with your crew face to face for, you know, a period of time. You know, and if, you know, if we're going to talk about longevity and aging, it's like, if you're maintaining social connections as you age, that's not a bad thing, you know. And if it keeps you
if you do it in a community, then I can get around it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting alone at home taking a picture of yourself inside of maybe I'll be less tolerant of that.
Yeah. But again, it's like, even if you're just doing it in your bathtub at home, it's like, if you think you're getting a performance gain out of it, then maybe you are. And then, you know, in 12 months' time, when you get sick of freezing your nutsack off every night, and you're just gonna move on to the next thing. Like, what was last year's or the year before? It was the Theraguns or whatever they were, those obnoxiously loud golf ball looking things.
Yeah, the potential sex toys.
Oh, one of my mates got a jigsaw from Bunnings and put a squash ball on the end or something.
Can we talk about the fact that those things were $600 and now they are $30 from the servo? Because for whatever reason, Shell now decides we sell you the massager gun.
I remember, so I bought my first foam roller early 2000s. Yeah, so it would have been, I'm just racking my brain for numbers now. So it would have been 05, 06, I bought my first foam roller, and I think it was like $60 or $70. It was like, yeah, $60 or $70 now is, you know, a lot of money for me. Like, even then it was, you know. And then now you can go to Kmart and buy them for $5 or $10 each. And, you know, I remember being the first one in my gym to use a foam roller, and everyone's like, "Ooh, wow, what are you doing?" And then,
now that you bring up the placebo effect, I remember as well what it was like to finally get my hands on a foam roller, and having spent years of like watching people in America use them, and talk about all these properties of it, and rolling on it for a couple of seconds and being like, is this it? And then, but then you want to buy into it. So then you go like, well, of course, this must be doing, you know, like, it must be.
Well, you of all people will understand the hypotheses of the sunk cost bias. And
100%. And you've invested too much of yourself into something.
I mean, to be fair, like, I when I spent my $60, and this was when YouTube was still very much in its infancy, and I really didn't know it. I remember one night sitting in my lounge room just looking at it going, what do I do with this? And I like text messaged a friend who I thought might know more than me. And it took me a while to get my head around what is this thing? Like, how do you do it? But like, the sunk cost bias is real. Like, if you invested $60 in a roller, you want to get something out of it. Like, you don't just want it to end up in the corner just collecting dust. Like, to be fair, I still have that roller, and it actually sits in my office right now. I put a sign over it saying communal foam roller lives here, because I actually hardly ever use it myself, if I'm honest.
No, I love it. We were talking about how the fitness industry goes in these different swings. One of the things that I noticed was when I first started going to the gym, I had an old timer kind of say that to me. He said, you know, everything you do now will one day be everyone will want to do the opposite. And I feel like I'm living through that, because I went through the CrossFit stage where we were the machine. You don't need the machines, you are the machine. And now I'm literally witnessing the complete opposite happen, where like people are now starting to buy more machines again. And
oh, okay. Like, I live in my academic ivory tower, so it's actually interesting. So for the last 4 or 5 years, on New Year's Eve or thereabouts, I've done a post on socials of the trends in exercise and nutrition. And I actually got to this year, and I remember I sat there for an hour and I'm like, I've been living in my academic ivory tower for the last 2 years, and I'm like, I actually don't have this post this year. Like, I wasn't upset about the fact that I was disconnected from it, if I'm really honest, but I'm like, oh fuck, I'm actually disconnected from this. Like, but yeah.
This is a test to know if you're disconnected from it or not.
Hang on,
one second. Winston, stop doing that.
When he was just having a lick of the tripod for the camera, and I think we could both just see that horribly wrong very quickly.
Do you use TikTok much?
No, not at all.
See, you and I are both disconnected from the world. We might as well be.
I was actually thinking the other day that I might need to enter the world of TikTok. I have noticed that, so Facebook is obviously just the boomers town square now, and that Facebook's just a dumpster fire anyway. And then I have noticed that age demographic on Instagram is definitely not getting any younger. And then where the young eyeballs are with a high disposable income. I don't want to say high because the economy is pretty knackered at the moment. But where the eyeballs are with the disposable income is clearly on TikTok right now. And I tried to sell a program on Instagram late last year, and it was just like the sound of crickets. So I was actually thinking like, oh fuck, actually I think I might need to learn how to use TikTok.
Do you ever get sick of the fact that like when we're like 70, we're gonna have like 11 different social media platforms?
I've still got a live journal. I got an email the other day saying like happy 20th anniversary of the live journal, and I'm like, oh shit.
I don't know what a live journal is.
Okay, so live journal predates MySpace.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was like peak emo culture, and it was where all the emo kids went to write their depressive poems.
Oh, of course.
And I couldn't even remember like if I even used mine. I don't think I used mine at all, but yeah, so it predates MySpace anyway. So yeah, I got an email saying like happy 20th anniversary or something like that. I'm like, is that still there?
They're hanging strong. They're still
like,
going.
I haven't logged in 20 years. Like, surely you've just gone and suspended my account. Like, maybe not delete the whole thing, but at least just suspend it.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we'll keep chatting to Ben.